qualify. John, this race is going to be a very fast race. Last year it was under 1 hour and 20 minutes. That first corner is very, very important indeed, because as I see it, if you get a good run out of that first corner on your first lap, you might gain a couple of places.
Well, I think the objectives of the two Ferraris will be just to block out anybody behind, trying to slide under one of the two Ferraris as they exit the stadium. It is always a difficult corner. The start grid, in fact, is further back on pit straight than the cars are currently placed. This is the dummy grid. They will start in the first third of the straight, and even in that distance they will be doing 140 miles an hour before they brake to sweep through the right-hand corner and out into the first of those very long straights that lead into the forest around the Hockenheim circuit. But again, as you say, first man out onto that straight in theory has an advantage. The only problem is, let's say it is Michael Schumacher, another blinding start with two Ferraris and a Williams Renault behind you. Believe me, in that sprint down to the first chicane, it's going to be about horsepower, and that's the one thing here at Hockenheim Ring that the Benetton Ford is slightly short of.
31.5 degrees, air temperature 49 degrees Celsius. That is track temperature. I don't think we've had it as hot as here. That's going to be another factor.
Well, for those statisticians who like to make note of these comments that we give you on Eurosport, according to the records, this is the hottest June week in Germany since records began. That's in 1850, and today, like Thursday, very hot indeed, very high track temperature. Reliability always a problem here at Hockenheim Ring. That means the air temperature with being high, engine temperatures are going to be high. 65% of the time you're on full throttle on the circuit. It is a finisher's race, and talking about Jos Verstappen back in 19th place, all he has to do is not make a mistake, drive his own race, and he could end up in the points. In fact, anybody in the top 10 by half distance could easily end up in the points. We've seen this race in the past. It's a real car killer.
Well, talking about car killers, the Ferrari team has decided to start both cars with the new Ferrari, the new 75-degree Ferrari engine that was used in qualifying to good effect here. So expect the Ferraris to be quick. The only question there is reliability.
Well, they had a problem on Friday with this new engine, but they managed to rectify those problems for Saturday qualifying, and in fact last night they had two fresh engines flown in, and the decision, amidst a great deal of secrecy I may add, the decision was made to fit those engines to the race cars. Ferrari have committed to this new engine, previously only seen in qualifying. It's a courageous decision. Ultimately, I believe it's the right decision. It's the only way you learn, and whatever happens, whatever the outcome is, they will go to the next Grand Prix much the wiser and with a better engine.
And then the other question we have to ask ourselves here, John, is the question of pit stops. Strategy, maybe Michael Schumacher on 2 stops, but I believe the majority of the field will go for a one-stop race.
Well, in fact, Goodyear have said, from their point of view, they would recommend a one-stop race. It is possible, in fact, to go non-stop, but I think that in these conditions, in this heat, the one-stop strategy is the one that most people will go with. The entry into the pit is quite a long way from the pit lane. The total length of time from the point you enter the pit lane until you re-exit and onto the track is about 32 seconds. That's quite long. The figures don't really marry up. Benetton, I believe, are the only people that may look at that option. And I think what they will do is, in fact, not make an early stop. They will go to the point where they would go for a one-stop race or very close to it. And then, depending on their position, decide how much fuel to put into the car, and then maybe make this variable strategy that they put into place in Manicourt for the French Grand Prix.
Here we look at the Constructors' Championship points. Benetton Ford 67, Williams Renault 43. Those points are taken into account that Michael Schumacher and the Benetton team have been disqualified for the British Grand Prix, and even though they've appealed against that decision, they still haven't got those points back in the standings you just saw on your screen. That is also why Michael Schumacher has now got 66 points instead of what you think might be 72 points. He's appealed against that decision, but he still hasn't got his points back for the moment. So 66 and 39, 27 points the difference between Michael Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. Then it is Jean Alesi now, sole third place in the championship with 19, and Gerhard Berger's got 17.
Allard, very interesting just watching the cars as they file back into the stadium. Everybody's very well behaved. The boys have realized that the FIA ain't going to take any prisoners. It does not appear that one car has overtaken even the car alongside them. They've filed in line in a very orderly fashion. Amazing what a big fine draws to people's attention, isn't it?
The stadium is absolutely packed here in Hockenheim. There is not a spare seat available. You can see the fireworks, the flags, everything. It is a buzzing place, Hockenheim. And, well, what would happen if Michael Schumacher would win this Grand Prix? There'll be a party till, well, in the early hours of the morning.
The only good thing is I think it would help those people that are trying to leave get out of the circuit more easily.
45 laps around the Hockenheim circuit, and 45 laps of 6.8 kilometers, a total of 306 kilometers. The green flag is out. Then the 5-second board is up. We are waiting for the red light on the top right of our screen to go on, and it's green. And who makes the best start? Oh, Geo Katayama makes a blinder of a start into third position. Katayama in third.
Mika Häkkinen has gone off very heavily to the left, and two other cars. There's a Jordan Eddie Irvine and one of the Tyrrells. It's Ukiya Katayama, and chaos, mayhem all around the first curve. That was started by Mika Häkkinen.
And a Ferrari retires.
So and a Ferrari, here you see Andrea de Cesaris. The Ferrari, Mika Häkkinen charged down the right-hand side of the track.
John, there's a Minardi just underneath the start light.
Pierluigi Martini's Minardi.
And there is Andrea here. That is the other Sauber of Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
And look at this, one of the Lotuses
There's
as well.
a Lotus, start number 11. That is Alessandro Zanardi. So we are seeing a lot of cars. There's Jean Todt. Look, he's pointing at the spare car. Jean Alesi or Gerhard Berger, I couldn't see which one it was, wants a spare car. There's Eddie Irvine's car, Mark Blundel's car. Absolute mayhem here in Hockenheim, even before the first corner.
Well, in fact, we had two entirely separate accidents taking place. One was at the back of the grid. The other was when Mika Häkkinen charged like mad, tight against the barrier on the right-hand side. He clipped somebody, I think it was probably Mark Blundell, I'm not sure. He then went across the track into the gravel bed, hit the tire wall on the left-hand side, very heavily indeed. But we've still got a race. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher.
I think it's a red flag, John, because Damon Hill is slowing down unless Damon is retiring. David Coulthard has lost his front wing. Now, what is happening here in Hockenheim? Damon Hill is slowing down. It's Gerhard Berger leading Michael Schumacher, Ukiyo Katayama. Then it is Alesi.
Well, there's no sign of a red flag. Waved yellows all the way down the pit lane. There are cars in the gravel bed. Well, the decision has been taken not to stop this race as Damon Hill or Coulthard, we can't see clearly.
Well, John, it's David Coulthard coming into the pits for a new nose cone, but Gerhard Berger leads Michael Schumacher by 0.6 of a second. Also, Damon Hill coming into the pits. Now, what is Damon's problem? His car doesn't seem to be damaged. Is this the end of his Grand Prix? What is the problem with Damon Hill? Has he hit something? Has he hit someone? Does he just want to check it? There we see the car in the pits. This is a tragic start for Damon Hill of this year's Grand Prix.
And there is
here in
Mika
Hockenheim.
Häkkinen's McLaren. That car hit the tyre wall on the left-hand side very heavily indeed.
So, Gerhard Berger leads Michael Schumacher by 0.6 of a second. Then Ukiyo Katayama, Oliver Penners, Jos Verstappen, Eric Bernard, Gianni Morbidelli, Christian Fittipaldi, Eric Comas and Oliver Beretta. David Brabham is 11th. David Coulthard was 12th. And I don't think we've got very many more cars left.
Well, there are 14 cars missing on our computer. And certainly we can see down here at least 6 of them, but we don't know where the others are. But the battle for the lead of this German Grand Prix between Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher right up the exhaust pipes of the V12 Ferrari. Coming back into the stadium, the crowd rise as the cars enter. You can see the flags. This is a battle for the German Grand Prix at the front, but there's hardly any of the field remaining.
Well, David Coulthard making his way out of the pits. He is 14th at the moment. They're letting go of the 120-kilometer button on his steering wheel, nearly 1 lap behind. This is Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher in second. The fireworks underneath our commentary position. You can hear him through our floor. But, I mean, John, you could be a very rich man if you would go to a bookmaker and say, after lap 1 on the German Grand Prix, that is your top 6.
Well, looking at the field, what remains of it, there are 13 cars on the grid now. Damon Hill, his car being worked on by the Williams team, still facing us. But this, of course, the focus of the Grand Prix now. Berger leading, Schumacher second. And I would think that Schumacher is prepared to sit and wait, apply pressure to Berger, not prepared to take any risks. Gerhard Berger is difficult to pass. He is old, he's experienced, he knows how to make his car fit the entire racetrack. Well, work going on the right front corner of Damon Hill's Williams Renault, and they're coming down to the center curve. Schumacher right up, but just hasn't got quite enough speed to be able to pull out, catch Gerhard Berger under braking.
Schumacher currently fastest man on the circuit, 1:49.759, and that's 0.3 of a second quicker than Gerhard Berger. There you see one of the problems already for Michael Schumacher, taking off a tear-off. Now that on lap 2 is very early indeed. Well, Damon Hill gets out onto the circuit again.
Well, Mika Häkkinen walking back to explain to his team what went wrong. David Coulthard coming past us, but I think the reason Michael Schumacher is tearing off one of those rip-offs is because there's lots of liquid coming from the back of Gerhard Berger's car. Very frequently teams overfill the oil tank. It may not just be that, it could also be water. As when the cars are on the grid, they do get very hot indeed. Overflow pipes dribble water into the under tray. That again will be sprayed over Michael Schumacher. That's the problem of being close behind. And a yellow flag out at that first chicane. Now, we couldn't see any clear reason for that. It's a still flag. There must be a car somewhere off the circuit at that point for no overtaking permissible.
We saw Jean Todt pointing at the spare Ferrari earlier on. I think Jean Todt thought there was going to be a restart, and there Michael Schumacher having a look but not being close enough.
Well, there really is no way for Schumacher to pass Berger in my mind at that point of the circuit. It's quite easy for Berger to defend, but coming down now the third straight down into the Ayrton Senna curve, this is the part of the circuit I think Schumacher feels he may have the best opportunity, but again the gap really much too large, and for Berger no problem at all. He can use the circuit that he chooses to without having to defend. But again, you see on the camera lens the amount of liquid that is coming out from the rear of that Ferrari.
Well, John, I'm going through the list of retirements already, and we've got out of the race Alboreto, Zanardi, Martini, De Cesaris, Herbert, Bernard, Barrichello, Irvine, Frentzen, Häkkinen, Blundell and Alesi at the start of lap number 5. And oh, sorry, missed Mika Häkkinen there, also out of this Grand Prix. So the track has been cleared. Gerhard Berger now a little quicker than Michael Schumacher, but only just. Schumacher sitting there behind the Ferrari, and we're on lap 5 out of 45.
Again, out of the stadium, Michael Schumacher is quicker, but of course this is the quickest of the 4 straights. This is where the Ferrari horsepower advantage is at its best. Schumacher maybe marginally better under brakes, putting his car out into the mirrors of Gerhard Berger just to tease him, just to let him know he's there. Well, Gerhard Berger, I think, is not going to be impressed at all by the antics of this young German, and once Schumacher starts to get serious about it, he will discover what an experienced driver Berger is.
So Gerhard Berger leads Michael Schumacher and Ukio Katayama. That is the top 3 on lap 5 of 45. We're going to take a short break here on Eurosport. Please rejoin us after that for more coverage of the German Grand Prix.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back on Eurosport. Gerhard Berger leads Michael Schumacher by 0.4 of a second at the end of lap 5. We're now on lap 6, and this is the gap. They're running together. This could well come down to pit stop strategy by the end of the race. Fastest man on the circuit at the moment is Damon Hill. A 1 minute 47.3 is about 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else. And there, Ukio Katayama's spin-off. So that means Oliver Panis will move into 3rd place. And let's see, can he get through there? Yes, he can. How many more positions Katayama's going to lose?
Well, Katayama was running strongly in 3rd place. Some 4.5 or 5 seconds ahead of Olivier Panis. Now that situation has been changed, and well, a small error from Katayama when really not under pressure, an unforced error.
So let's have a look at the replay of that start line incident, which basically cost 10 cars. John.
Well, looking at the back of the grid, suddenly congestion, cars touch there. You can see cars shooting to the right, shooting to the left. A Sauber up in the air, a Ludus and a Minardi in the pit wall. But watch Mika Häkkinen going down the outside. He clips, I think that was David Coulthard he clipped. He then loses control, goes right across the gravel bed. There again, the aerial shot hits the tower wall very heavily. 2 left-hand corners off the car. Jordan, a Tyrrell, another Sauber. And I have not seen a Grand Prix start like this. I can't remember last when we saw this, but again, look, watching at the front of the grid, Häkkinen pulls right over to the right. In the meantime, the back end of the grid has just gone AWOL. Häkkinen squeezes Mark Blundell against Coulthard, catches Eddie Irvine, catches the Sauber.
Well, John, this action from Mika Häkkinen at the start of the race. Remember, Mika basically has got a 1-race ban, suspended for 3 races. Could this be something that could cost him that ban?
Well, I think if the FIA wants to continue the rule of an iron fist, then that has to be a consideration. They've got to look at that and say, was that reckless driving, or was it just one of those things, a racing accident? He certainly took a major chance by going down tight on the right-hand side. There really wasn't room for 4 cars' width. Contact was made. Coulthard had really nowhere to go. Mark Blundell had nowhere to go, and Irvine and one of the Saubers, Frentzen, we think, equally in the same position. So if I was Mika Häkkinen, I would be sitting on eggs right now.
So Gerhard Berger leads Michael Schumacher after 7 laps. And then it's Oliver Panis in 3rd position. The man who was the winner of his first Formula 3000 race here a year ago is now 3rd in the Ligier. 4th is the other Ligier of Eric Bernard. And well, sorry I was smiling a little bit there, but having 2 Ligiers in the top 4 after 7 laps is a major achievement.
And also, as I said, Verstappen starting 19th. If he just keeps his act clean, he doesn't have to pass anybody, and he's already in 5th place. So Hockenheim, well, not the way I'd expected it to happen, but now watch Schumacher right up the gearbox of Gerhard Berger. Berger now is going to have to do a little bit of work. Watch him go left to prevent Schumacher diving out. Thank you very much, Gerhard. Schumacher back to the right, but really, once Gerhard blocked that move from Schumacher, now Schumacher has a second chance. He's right up against the gearbox of Gerhard Berger. This is a race of horsepower. Berger probably will stay on the right-hand side of the track all the way down. Schumacher flicking left, flicking right. Well, this is going to be a little bit of an education, an open university course for Michael Schumacher. Berger and teammate Alesi amongst the most difficult to pass. Fortunately for Schumacher, he has only 1 Ferrari in the race to deal with.
Clearly the fastest man on the circuit right now is Damon Hill, lapping 2.4 seconds quicker than anybody else, including the leaders. The problem is he's quite a long way behind.
Well, the problem is he needs to. Damon also, there's a waved flag on exit out of the stadium. There's a car being, I'm not sure that's one of the cars that was originally in that first corner shunt being pulled away, or whether someone else is off.
That looks very much like Mark Blundell's car being pulled away there. But Gerhard Berger, John, let's go back to the man who's won 8 Grand Prix in his Grand Prix career. Probably the hardest nut to crack. Well, here is Damon Hill, the fastest man on the circuit. I mean, 46.5 was Damon's previous lap. 49.6 is what these two are lapping at.
Well, it was at the German Grand Prix last year. We saw Mark Blundell get a little bit of an education from Gerhard Berger, and none too happy he was about it either. Gerhard is tough. Looking into the Benetton garage, Willy Weber, the manager of Michael Schumacher. But Schumacher, equally tough, and certainly man enough to take on Gerhard Berger. But the advantage lies with Berger. He doesn't have to be quick through these chicanes. In doing so, he delays the time it takes Schumacher to get back onto the throttle. In the meantime, Berger can use the horsepower he has, the advantage he has in straight line speed. And the main thing that Berger must do is not allow the pressure from Michael Schumacher to get at him. He knows he's got the advantage, but of course, all this can change when it comes to the first round, or maybe the only round of pit stops. Now, whatever teams have decided to do prior to the race starting, it's quite possible, in the case of Benetton particularly, that they may now just determine to go with a one-stop. When there was a 26-car grid, they may have thought about two-stop. They will be recalculating their strategy. I would say now that Benetton will go for one-stop Grand Prix. They will hope to take the lead of the German Grand Prix during that pit stop.
We're on lap 10. There, a new fastest lap on lap 7 for Damon Hill, 46.460. And let's just compare that to Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher, who are doing 48.9 and 49.7 respectively. John, that is a massive gap. A little thing in my mind might say, although Damon's 3 seconds a lap quicker, could that be because he might be on 2 stops then?
I would doubt it very much. I think Damon has got a clear track, has got nothing to lose now. He's driving in a completely free state of mind. He will do things that he would not probably do if he was leading the Grand Prix. Almost have amused John Alesi there in the pits, watching the progress of his teammate at Ferrari, Gerhard Berger. Well, Schumacher just once again putting the nose of the Benetton into the mirrors of the Ferrari. Really, to try and run so close to an opponent, in fact, is more difficult. And what he is doing, in reality, is dropping his potential pace to that of Gerhard Berger. What he might consider doing is dropping back possibly a second or second and a half, and then build up. And it's in the stadium. That's where the Benetton advantage lies. Close up to Gerhard Berger, but mainly as they exit through the stadium, hopefully maintain a higher speed through that corner, latch onto the back of Berger and try one way or the other to put the car alongside Berger before they actually get to the braking zone into the Jim Clark curve.
Gerhard Berger starting lap 11, 0.4 of a second ahead of Michael Schumacher. So 38 laps to go in this German Grand Prix, with a Ferrari leading a Benetton, a Ligier and another Ligier, and then the second Benetton of Jos Verstappen in front of Gianni Morbidelli. Join us after the break here on Eurosport.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back on Eurosport. These two you're watching now are race leader Gerhard Berger and Michael Schumacher. In third position, although 16 seconds behind, is Oliver Panis. Then Eric Bernard, Panis' teammate, Jos Verstappen in the second Benetton, and Martin Brundle. Actually, yes. Morbidelli is 7th, 8th Fittipaldi, 9th Eric Comas, and 10th Oliver Beretta. While the two fastest drivers on the circuit are David Coulthard and Damon Hill in 13th and 14th position. All this because of a massive start line shunt, John, I would call it.
Well, indeed, if anybody just happened to miss the start, it was absolutely, well, Keystone Cops, that's the only way I could describe it. There was a shunt at the front of the grid. There was a shunt literally just at the start of the back of the grid, and virtually 14 cars were taken out. 2 of those, Damon Hill and David Coulthard, have been able to rejoin the Grand Prix. I expected to see the race red flag. The decision was taken not to do so. There was no danger to the cars remaining on the track, but a massive first corner and start line shunt, taking out 12 cars in total.
The last time that happened, John, if I go back, well, we have a look at the classification after 11 laps. I think, off the top of my head, it was Silverstone 1973 when we had a shunt started by Jody
Michael
Scheckter.
Schumacher into the pits. Schumacher rushing down. Now this is something, the timing light for the pit lane starts there. He will slow down to 120 kilometers per hour. Michael Schumacher making the first of what could be a two-stop race. He is in on lap 12 of a 45-lap race. No clock running. We don't know how long the stop is taking. Well, Bennett and Ford have now shown their hands, and it looks very much like that stop was not long enough to put in enough fuel, as Martin Brundle now likewise comes in. Looks like a two-stop race for him as well. The amount of time that Bennett and Ford was in the pits, although no clock showed it, to me indicated that he will be coming in twice. Gerhard Berger professed to want to do a one-stop race, and I would think that that is the strategy Ferrari has adopted. And now pressure momentarily is off Gerhard Berger. Michael Schumacher, fresh tyres, fresh fuel load, trying to get back up ahead of the two Ligiers, which are currently in second and third place.
So 14 cars still running while we are watching Jos Verstappen currently in 5th, and Verstappen is closing up on the Ligier of Eric Bernard, but also in his mirrors is World Championship and team leader Michael Schumacher on his way back to the front of the field. Now, Michael being behind Jos Verstappen, John, means he's lost something like 23 seconds on that pit stop.
Well, that's very quick, because that's about 9 seconds less than I had been told by some of the teams as to the amount of time that they reckon they would lose by making pit stops. Bennett and Ford team practiced 15 pit stops last night. They practiced a further 20 here this morning before the 30-minute warm-up. On top of that, they had 150 practice pit stops before the season began. And at every Grand Prix they go through this regime. They've got it down. It's an art form for them. And that is why in many Grand Prix this year they have actually taken the lead during a pit stop.
Gerhard Berger now leads Oliver Panis. Then it's Eric Bernard. No, it's not. It's Michael Schumacher. Then Eric Bernard, although my computer will show otherwise. But even before the first corner, Schumacher had passed the Ligier. Then it's Jos Verstappen. And that is a picture from Jos Verstappen's car, John, who very neatly got out of the way of Michael Schumacher, not losing a lot of time. Well done.
Well, he had the presence of mind to know that team leader was behind him. His objective and role here today is to finish in the points, and that's something I think he ought to be capable of doing, given the opportunity that presented itself on that first lap. And now, in fact, really what he's trying to do is shadow his teammate, get past Eric Bernard, and that's something I would think he will be in position to do now, coming down the third and first of the return straights to the stadium. But of course, these two Ligier Renaults amongst the quickest cars here this weekend down the straight. In fact, in Saturday qualifying, Panis and Bernard were doing 336 kilometers per hour on the straight leading out of the stadium. The quickest cars on the quickest part of the circuit.
We're on lap 14. Incidentally, Michael Schumacher's in-lap was a 1:51.5. His out-lap a 2:07. Martin Brundle's in-lap, John, was a 1:52.5. So Brundle already losing a second on the in-lap and losing a further 4/10, which is not a lot on the out-lap.
Of course, remember, Schumacher was having to pass traffic, whereas Martin Brundle would have had a clearer run. Well, Schumacher back up into second place, and now we have to watch the lap time, because Schumacher's last lap was some half a second faster than of race leader Gerhard Berger. Now he's clear of all the traffic. Look, came from a long way behind, but in all truth and honesty, Panis was actually quite relieved at letting Michael Schumacher through. He knew that his second place was only going to be a temporary one. Clearly let Schumacher through. I think an intelligent move from Olivier Panis.
There's a top 6 on your screen with Christian Fittipaldi moving into 6th because of Martin Brundle's pit stop. And Gianni Morbidelli is moving out of the top 7 because he had a very quick pit stop. So David Coulthard and Damon Hill a little slower than they were before. Damon now lapping in the low 147s, and Coulthard, after setting fastest lap, also in the 147s.
Simple reason, I think, for that, Allard, is that they went back out, they had a clear track, they had fresh tyres, but ultimately they've used those tyres very hard indeed. They've just taken that little edge off the tyre, as opposed to Berger and Schumacher, who've been going at it hammer and tongs up until lap 12, when Schumacher came in for his first pit stop. And that's really the difference between racing for position and driving clear of the field. And again, referring back to the open and free mind that both Coulthard and Hill will have had after the disastrous start to their German Grand Prix, when through no fault of their own they were taken out by an ambitious overtaking maneuver of Mika Häkkinen.
There's Jos Verstappen in 5th position, and Verstappen coming into the pits. Verstappen into the pits on lap 16, at the start of lap 16, and there he brings us in. And let's see if we can stay with this camera shot, because I rather like this. Well, we can't. Jos's lap a 154.6. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh! And there's
the thing that people have dreaded. There is a fire.
Oh dear, oh dear. And Verstappen is in that car.
The garage as well. One of the mechanics says the fuel has caught fire. Verstappen is out. He's uninjured. The mechanic has also had his fire out. The fire, the hose, the fuel line was rejected. It didn't take the coupling. It flew back out. Neat fuel then was ejected over a red hot exhaust. A flash fire occurred. One of the mechanics down in the McLaren pit is waiting for attendance from the medical people here at Hockenheimring. But he's okay, he's standing up. And I think as much as anything, there's shock. That flash fire was so sudden. There you see the effect of what happens. The fuel hose failed to locate firmly into the female location in the fuel tank. The fuel hose then was thrown back, and neat fuel thrown all over the right-hand side of Jos Verstappen's car. Immediately onto red-hot exhaust, engine still running. A horrible moment for Jos Verstappen, a horrible moment for all those Benetton personnel who were working and refueling, involved in wheel changes. This is something that we had hoped we would never see at a Grand Prix. Hopefully, all those people in the Benetton, there we look and see what happened. Look, the flashback, splashback. Now, ignition. The mechanic wanting to step back. The fire all around Jos Verstappen, who's in the car. Fortunately, he had his visor down. Fortunately, the flame retardant suit he was wearing will have saved him. But a very frightening moment indeed, and something that everybody in Formula One had been dreading. Remember also, it's a very, very hot day here in Hockenheim, and fuel extremely volatile in this temperature.
So it's Gerhard Berger leading Michael Schumacher, and it's a bit of an understatement if we can call this a spectacular German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, with a lot of action just after the start, and now that pit stop of Jos Verstappen. And I do feel sorry while we are looking at the rankings for Jos Verstappen, John. The guy wasn't doing anything wrong. He was, in my opinion, driving a very sensible race. A bit lucky on that first lap, but he did get through the carnage, and this maybe would rectify all the problems he'd had all weekend.
Well, I'm sorry, Alan, I think that's totally irrelevant. I think what's more important is the health of those Benetton mechanics and Jos Verstappen after what was an appalling sight, something we had never hoped to ever see. These refueling rigs have been proven to be fundamentally very safe indeed. Suddenly that fuel rig, or the hose, blew back, and the fire was inevitable.
So David Coulthard retiring from the German Grand Prix, coming into the pits. Gerhard Berger leads. Please rejoin us after the break on Eurosport.
Eurosport Live.
We're back on Eurosport. This is race leader Gerhard Berger, completing lap 18 of 45, and he's got a 20.3 second lead over second place man Michael Schumacher. Then it's Oliver Panis and Eric Bernard still third and fourth. David Coulthard. John, his engine wasn't sounding too good. Then he came into the pits, spent quite a long time in the pits, but is back out again. But that is race leader Gerhard Berger.
And a comfortable lead he has presently, and I say presently because Michael Schumacher at the end of the 18th lap was just 20 seconds behind. Here is Michael Schumacher locking up the left front coming into the Sachs curve. This is a replay, but Berger's lead 20 seconds is not enough in my mind for Berger when he comes in to make his one and only stop in this year's German Grand Prix to prevent Michael Schumacher taking the lead. But of course Schumacher then's got his work cut out, because he will then make a second pit stop, a second Benetton pit stop. And after what we've seen here some moments ago for Jos Verstappen when he made his pit stop, I don't know what caused the problem with the connection to the fuel line to the car, but it looked like a blowback. Maybe there's pressurization in the fuel tank, we don't know. But for Benetton, it obviously will be a moment when they will take great care indeed to ensure the coupling is made solid, and the fuel that they are going to put into the car at that second stop will go in, and there will be a little case of, I think a large case in fact, of caution, and make sure that everything is done with total safety.
Well, of course, Benetton has got to do another stop for Michael, as John said. Gerhard Berger leading the German Grand Prix at the end of lap 19, and I think we can safely say that is a one-stop race. Moving up the positions now is Damon Hill, who is in 12th position and still a second quicker than anybody else.
Well, Ferrari pit preparing for a Gerhard Berger pit stop. Benetton, Ford equally, and Tom Walkinshaw I see on pit lane, presently walking to all the guys who were working on Jos Verstappen's car, talking to them. And Verstappen's in problems. No. Sorry, Michael Schumacher in problems, engine sounding sick as a dog, and that is more in my view than just a broken exhaust pipe. Michael Schumacher's Ford engine rough, and this looks to me as if Michael Schumacher's race is grinding to a halt. Yes, indeed, you can see Michael Schumacher going slower and slower as he makes his way down to the Jim Clark curve, and this looks like the end of Schumacher's German dream.
Well, we had a start line shunt, we had fire in the pits, we had now Michael Schumacher going very slow indeed. An action-packed German Grand Prix. There we... tells it all. So Oliver Panis moves into second position and Eric Bernard moves into third position.
Well, I suppose if you look at it positively, Benetton now own the Ligier team. So while the prime Benetton Ford team looks like having a pretty short German Grand Prix, tragically and sadly in the case of Verstappen with that pit stop fire, Michael Schumacher with an engine sounding extremely rough indeed. All the honours now for podium positions will lie with Oliver Panis and Eric Bernard, and Gerhard Berger now into the pits as David Coulthard returns to retire. Berger making his way into pit lane now for his one, and we believe only, pit stop in this year's German Grand Prix.
Gerhard Berger taking it easy on the way in, 1:53.1. That is 1.6 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher did on his first pit stop, and even slower than Martin Brundle did in his stop. There's is a very long stop. All the fuel is in, but they didn't really need to hurry, John, because they've got a 32-second lead over Oliver Panis, and Gerhard is not losing the lead, while Michael Schumacher comes into the pits. And I think, John, that is a definite retirement from this year's Grand Prix.
Well, the car sounded really, really rough indeed, and unless there's something electrical that the team can very quickly rectify, it looks to me like this is the end of the day for Michael Schumacher. In fact, the team have decided, no, that's it, Michael, no more today. And you can see frustration and disappointment and the emotion the man has gone through over the past week, going to Paris to face the FIA, believing that he may get little more than at worst a one-race penalty, coming away with a two-race ban, racing under appeal. He has yet to face the prospects of that appeal, but the only good prospect for Michael Schumacher is that Damon Hill, who was involved in that first corner shunt, Mika Häkkinen clipped both the Williams, and therefore the point situation would appear to me to remain fairly static. Damon Hill presently in 12th place. You never know, he could get up onto the top 6. There's still over half race distance of this year's German Grand Prix remaining.
Well, John, I actually, to go back to Damon, I think something else went wrong with Damon's car, because he slowed down during the first lap and he was actually in front of Mika when he spun off. But there is a very disappointed German Formula 1 driver with a very disappointed manager, and there is a very happy Gerhard Berger. Now, can we see the first Ferrari victory since September 1990, when Alain Prost won the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez?
Well, watching Gerhard as he came through the stadium, without any doubt at all, he has eased his pace considerably. He's got no pressure. You can see the first of the Ligiers behind him is 2.7 seconds, but they have yet to make their pit stops. The Ligier team are ready. They've got the wheel tyres on to the pit lane. They are prepared for either Panis or Eric Bernard to come in. And all Gerhard Berger really has to do now is just go through the process of running down to lap 45. No pressure really at all. And one has to believe that this is the way the results will end up on lap 45.
Unless I've missed something, John, on our screen, I'm missing Martin Brundle. And Martin is dropped out of the top 10. The team is ready for him, but I can't see Martin Brundle anywhere on his way into the pit. So I suppose somewhere on the circuit, somewhere on that 6.8 kilometers, he's in trouble.
Well, I just saw the car on the third straight coming down to the Ayrton Senna curve. His car is off to the right, and that is a retirement for Martin Brundle. Well, there are the first 3, Ferrari and 2 Ligiers, and the thought of seeing 2 Ligiers running in the top 3 really must come as a surprise. But, you know, results come in strange ways, and what more does a team need than a good result? New management, Cesare Fiorio, technical design, and here we are, Martin Brundle's car being towed away to safety. Martin doing a nice piece of reverse work, just taking the car away to safety behind the barriers. The course car, the ONS course cars, removing that car to safety.
Well, Gerhard Berger, winner of 8 Grand Prix. Well, the first of the Ligiers is in Oliver Panis. Panis' best result so far is a 7th place in Spain, and he suddenly finds himself in 2nd place during the German Grand Prix. Eric Bernard's best result to date is a 3rd, and that was a long time ago, where he's racing for the LaRousse team, or the Lola team then, in Britain in 1990. That was at Silverstone. So the gap between Eric Bernard and Gerhard Berger is 8 seconds. Then it's Oliver Panis, Christian Fittipaldi, Gianni Morbidelli and Eric Gomez. That's the top 6. We're on lap 23. See you soon on Eurosport.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back on Eurosport. You're with Damon Hill, the fastest man on the circuit, while we are watching a replay of Gerhard Berger. Berger leading the Grand Prix by 16.4 seconds from Eric Bernard. Then it's Oliver Panis and Christian Fittipaldi. That was at the end of lap 23. But then in the meantime, Eric Bernard's made a pit stop, and also Damon Hill. Now, John, Damon Hill, although he's been running free for the most of this race, eventful race, he has been consistently 2 seconds lap quicker than anybody else. Now, the tactics were good. It's just not your day, if it isn't your day, is it?
No, but Damon has got opportunity, because people ahead of him, he's capable of running a lot quicker than. But of course, the worst thing could have happened for Damon, with Michael Schumacher's misfortune to be out of the Grand Prix. It is Michael Schumacher's actual fortune, because if Damon fails to score, Schumacher isn't going to score, obviously. It means the job that Damon Hill and the Williams-Renault team have in the remaining part of the season of hunting down Michael Schumacher is going to be made all the more difficult. Williams and Damon Hill really had to finish in the top 3, preferably win the race, to have any chance. This is a big setback for the Williams-Renault team. It's a relief and a stroke of luck for the Benetton Ford team.
Hennis back into second place. There we see 2 LaRousse Fords, Eric Comas and Olivier Beretta, 6th and 7th. There is Beretta in 7th position, some 1 minute and 12 seconds behind race leader Gerhard Berger. Well, Damon had a fairly leisurely tyre stop, John. 2:09 on his first lap, but then he had to take on board a lot of fuel, I suppose.
Also, I think that to try and do the split-second pit stops, having seen what happened in the Benetton Ford team with Jos Verstappen, I think everybody is being very cautious indeed, because with the very high temperatures indeed, any fuel spillage is going to be a danger. We saw with Gerhard Berger when he made his pit stop, it was not the normal Ferrari magic. They took a lot more time, a lot more care, and I think that is the message that's going down the pit lane today. Don't try and do it in a record-breaking time.
10 cars were on lap 25. 10 cars during this German Grand Prix, and there we've just seen all of them on our screen. Damon Hill some 20 seconds behind Jean-Marc Gounon in 9th position, but then Damon is lapping quite a lot quicker than Jean-Marc, so that could be 4 or 5 laps maybe, and then he's got him. Damon Hill there behind Gianni Morbidelli and Christian Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi and Morbidelli are actually fighting for 4th place.
But really more importantly than the battle between the two footwork drivers is the fact that teams like Ligier, Footwork, and in the case of Eric Comas, the LaRousse team, they have got the opportunity to score points in the second half of the season. That's very important for those teams, because it assists the team when it comes to the way Formula One operates and enables them to be traveling and going to the overseas races, the ones that are outside of Europe. So for Footwork, for the Ligier team and for LaRousse, this is really a red letter day.
Also, the last time that came past, Eric Bernard's car wasn't sounding too good, so we keep an ear on that. Fittipaldi and Morbidelli, teammates this season, and the season started very good with Gianni qualifying 6th in Brazil, then 9th place in qualifying for Christian in the Pacific Grand Prix, and he finished 4th there, but things have not gone their way lately, so they could do with a result like this.
Well, of the top 6 running currently, the Ligier team are the only ones that have failed to score points. Footwork have currently got 3 points, and LaRousse has 1 point. So if Ligier running 2nd and 3rd can maintain those positions, they'll all of a sudden leap up to equal that of Sauber with 10 points and be in 6th place. That's in the Constructors' Championship, of course.
Fastest lap of the race, still David Coulthard on lap 11, a 1:46.211, and Gerhard Berger is now lapping around 1:49. So there's Damon Hill trying to unlap himself from Gianni Morbidelli, but I don't think... Oh, Morbidelli is actually pointing Damon that way.
Well, I think he moved over to the left. He saw Damon coming. He wanted to maintain his line and entry into the corner. He made Damon go onto the dirty part of the track. That was quite fair. He gave him the opportunity, and I don't think Damon would be at all upset. He'd rather have the inside line and know that Morbidelli clearly was signaling for him to take that part of the track. Christian Fittipaldi now in the sights of Damon Hill. Here you see Morbidelli pulls over to the left. Damon slots down the right on the dirtier part of the track. Not a problem for Damon Hill.
There we see it again from the car of Damon. So 32.8 seconds, the gap between Pennes and Berger. Damon Hill now passing Christian Fittipaldi. Now Damon is actually lapping over 2 seconds a lap quicker, so he is a lot quicker than those two.
To be fair, Allard, so he should be.
11 seconds, the gap between Jean-Marc Gounon and Damon Hill. Jean-Marc Gounon lapping 1:40.54. Damon Hill 1:48 on that last lap. So expect Damon to be past Jean-Marc Gounon after 2 laps from now. And then We're on lap 27 of 45. Anything can happen. Remember Damon Hill at this point of the circuit last year, where he blown a tire and lost the race. Basically anything can happen until the last lap of this German Grand Prix. It is over 31 degrees at the moment.
Well, in fact, for the drivers, they don't feel that heat in the way that the spectators here or we in our commentary booth are doing. Their focus and concentration is so deep. I see a replay of Fittipaldi staying well over to the left and allowing Damon to on-lap himself. There, this wonderful high-speed camera shot we see of Damon Hill, and it gives you an insight into just how stiff these current Formula One cars are with the revised regulations, lifting wheels anywhere where there's an undulation. But I must say, the change in performance from the beginning of the year to this, the first race in the second part of the season with the Williams-Renault team, is impressive. They've worked exceptionally hard to make this car really what I would call user-friendly, and David Coulthard and Damon Hill are certainly making best use of that newfound, I think, confidence in their cars.
Berger leads Panis and Bernard. That's the top three. We're on lap 28 of 45. We're going to take a short break here on Eurosport. Please rejoin us after that here in Hockenheim.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back here on Eurosport. Gerhard Berger leads the German Grand Prix, and it could be his first Grand Prix victory, John, since Australia 1992.
And that was the last race he had with the McLaren Honda team. And Gerhard, after 3 seasons with McLaren, decided to leave and join the Ferrari team. And in an interesting interview recently in Autosport, he gave his views of his time at McLaren, and I think he enjoyed it in many ways, but felt possibly that the particular qualities that Gerhard Berger has, which are principally of a fun-loving and a slightly hedonistic nature, Ron Dennis and McLaren tried to maybe retune him more into the style of Ayrton Senna, and Gerhard felt that maybe he lost something in his driving as a result of that. When he went back to Ferrari, he felt more free, but of course then he's had pretty appalling year last year with the team, and so far in 94, well, it's been a bit mixed. But maybe finally for Gerhard Berger, all the hopes and aspirations he had when he joined Ferrari are going to come true for him this afternoon.
Pit stop for Gianni Morbidelli in the footwork, and that is a scheduled stop for Morbidelli. He will probably not lose a position during that pit stop. It is a good pit stop, and Morbidelli is out of the pits.
Fine pit stop from the footwork team, very economical. Everything worked smoothly, and I would say 8.7 seconds, very, very good indeed.
Berger lapping 1:49.4 on that last lap. He's some 35 seconds ahead of Oliver Panis, and there we see the gap between 8th and 9th place drivers, David Brabham and Damon Hill. Berger crossing the line. Lap 30 is completed. That means 15 laps to go in this year's German Grand Prix, who was action-packed at the start. Then we had the Verstappen incident, but since then it's gone a bit quiet.
I'm delighted to say it has, because there was so much so early in this Grand Prix. A start line shunt at the back of the grid, and then Mika Häkkinen charging hard up into the right-hand corner out of the stadium. Got it wrong, cut across the front of 4 cars. They had little choice but to take avoiding action, and while we were watching what was happening at the front, of course, we missed until we saw directly in front of us what had happened, and the outcome was, in that first lap between the start and the first corner, we lost 12 cars.
And also, let's not forget, we lost the second Benetton of World Championship leader Michael Schumacher. Schumacher who retired with a very sick sounding Ford engine in the back of his Benetton. And there's, oh, that is very generous, Mr. Bernard.
Well, they're both Renault-engined teams. But Damon Hill very much charging. He's got nothing to lose. And as I've said, this clarity of thought and view now of this Grand Prix from Damon Hill's driving seat would be quite different to that of Gerhard Berger, who's leading the Grand Prix. Gerhard, all he has to do is maintain a comfortable pace, no real pressure or stress on the car. He's not concerned about really anybody else in the field. Olivier Panis in second place, 36 seconds now behind in shot from Damon Hill. And Panis certainly was very considerate. He could have shut the door, many would have done so. And Damon just waiting until it was clear what Panis's plans were, and then he made his move.
There's the man currently fastest on the circuit, second in the World Championship on 39 points. And there we see the top six. Now Eric Comas is in sixth, so if Damon wants to score points, that's where he's got to head for. And Comas is currently a good minute ahead of Damon Hill.
Well, with 13 laps remaining of this German Grand Prix, that's a mighty tall task of anybody. And well, Damon Hill will be getting all the information he needs from his pits, but even the calculations that they will be making, I'm quite sure will say, have a go. But you must never give up in these situations, because something may happen to Comas. He may break an exhaust pipe. Those things can happen. This is a mechanically tiring race. You've got to keep pushing in a situation like Damon Hill is in. It's a long shot, but you've got to go for it.
Last year Damon Hill classified 15th, but this man, Gerhard Berger, finished 6th last year here, completed all 45 laps of the German Grand Prix, and he will now start very shortly lap number 33. Well, there's another replay of that beautiful slow-mo shot. Gerhard Berger completing lap 32, and the lead he's got over Oliver Panis is huge.
Well, I think Ligier are just delighted to be running in the top three positions, second and third. They're not really under too much threat from Christian Fittipaldi in fourth. He's some 11.5 seconds behind Eric Bernard. And really all they're concerned about is getting their two cars home, not putting any load or stress into the car, the engine, the gearbox. They're running, in the case of Panis on the last lap, 1 minute 51. In the case of Bernard, some 1.7 seconds slower. I put that down to traffic, so in reality they're running some 2 to 2.5 seconds a lap slower than Gerhard Berger, the race leader, who himself is running about a second on average a lap slower than Damon Hill, the current quickest man in the remaining field.
The crowd has gone a bit quiet here at Hockenheim, and there are quite a few people leaving already from the Hockenheim circuit, where Gerhard Berger leads Oliver Panis. We'll be back here on Eurosport.
Eurosport Live.
Welcome back on Eurosport, where Damon Hill takes Oliver Panis, who was not the most cooperative person in the field, but he's still in second place behind Gerhard Berger on a circuit that's gone fairly quiet. The only flags I see at the moment being waved are Ferrari flags.
Well, there is a hush in this massive Hockenheim Ring Stadium. Michael Schumacher's retirement some 12-13 laps now ago was the reason for that hush. The hopes that this massive German crowd had placed on Schumacher ended with retirement. A very rough sounding engine. And in fact, many of the German fans already departing to look forward to coming back to the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim next year, or in case those really die-hard enthusiasts that will make their way to the Hungaroring in 2 weeks' time.
Oliver Pennes, incidentally, born in 1966, comes from Lyon in France, and made his debut earlier this year in Brazil after winning the Formula 3000 Championship last year, and basically is on a race-by-race call by the Ligier team. Gerhard Berger, of course, very experienced, won 8 Grand Prix so far in his Grand Prix career, and is on course for his 9th.
And on top of that, he's got a nice contract in his back pocket for 1995 at Ferrari. I talked to him yesterday in the pit lane, and when Gerhard's got that wicked little smile on his face, you know he's done something pretty good. And he can look forward to the security of employment with Ferrari for one more season. Word about John Alesi still not quite clear. He did express some dissatisfaction with the Ferrari team, and in fact upset Luca de Montezemolo so much to prompt the reply that if Alesi wants to leave at the end of the season, well, in fact, we'll give him his cards right now. He can go right now. Everything then backed off a little bit, I think.
10 laps to go in this German Grand Prix, with Gerhard Berger going on to the first of the 3 long straights, leading this race probably by 45 seconds by the time Oliver Pennes crosses the line. Pennes still in 2nd place, but second on the road at the moment is Damon Hill, who's 1 lap behind in 8th. Behind Oliver Beretta and Eric Comas, the 2 LaRousse Fords. Gianni Morbidelli and Christian Fittipaldi, 2 Footworks, and then 2 Ligiers of Bernard and Pennes. There's 2 Simtecs left as well, 1 Williams and 1 Ferrari.
Well, I think Simtech deserve credit because they've had a pretty difficult year, and between the British Grand Prix and the German Grand Prix testing at Silverstone, David Brabham had a braking problem at the end of the Hangar Straight and had a fairly substantial accident. Fortunately, no injury to himself, but fairly severe damage to that Simtech chassis. So they just get themselves back on their feet, and then suddenly the stools kicked away yet again. But they've got 2 cars running in this year's German Grand Prix, both cars in the top 10. 9th for David Brabham and 10th for Jean-Marc Gounod.
And that would be David's best result and the team's best result as well in their difficult first year in Formula 1 racing. Gerhard Berger currently 3rd in the World Championship, 17 points, and he would move up into 2nd position due to the fact that Jean Alesi doesn't score any points. Alesi, who before the appeal was at similar points to Berger, and there we see the Benetton mechanic washing his face. And well, that could have been much worse, John. I think everybody was very lucky there.
Well, I think when you've got a flash fire like that, and there we see Jos Verstappen now returning to his motorhome from the medical center, receiving treatment, more probably not from any fire or flash fire in his case, but when you get the powder extinguishers, that just chokes you. It's a very uncomfortable situation to be in, apart from the shock that a driver would feel suddenly finding himself in an inferno, but equally all those Benetton engineers who are involved in that pit stop, and you want to wash away the residue of the fumes, the petrol, and of course all that fire extinguisher powder. The shock is really, I think, the thing that will stay with those members of the Benetton team for some time, and there will have to be an investigation into what did go wrong, and certainly the Benetton Ford team, I'm sure, will undertake that themselves very quickly indeed, and the lessons learned from that will be undoubtedly passed through the remaining of the Formula 1 teams.
We're on lap 37 of 45. Watching the man currently 2nd in the World Championship, Damon Hill, Williams Renault, who had a problem on lap 1, then spent the whole lap in the pits and now is back out on the circuit in 8th position.
And all of a sudden Damon is now lapping again in the mid 1:46 second back. For a long time it was 48s, sometimes a low 49, but he's clear of traffic. He can run at his own pace. He's carving lumps out of Olivier Beretta, some 5 seconds on that last lap, but time is running out for Damon Hill. He's done the best he can under very difficult circumstances indeed. He may leave this year's German Grand Prix feeling that he's done a really outstanding job, but with no reward at all. That happens quite frequently during a driver's Grand Prix career. Some of the best drives I remember as a Grand Prix driver probably went unnoticed by other people. They didn't result in points, but you know in yourself you've done a good job, and I'm sure the Williams-Renault team will give Damon full support for his efforts this afternoon.
Third place man, we see him there, Eric Bernard in the Ligier. Well, Cesare Fiorio and Frank Durney can be very happy, John, with both cars up in the top 3, but we've got to be honest, and they are 46 seconds behind Gerhard Berger's Ferrari.
I don't think they're concerned about Berger. They know there's no opportunity to catch or challenge him. They're into consolidation. They want their 2 drivers on the podium. They've probably instructed them to back off as much as they can. The benchmark by which they will judge their race pace, in fact, and this man is an arch strategist, Cesare Fiorio, formerly of Ferrari and then more latterly involved in offshore powerboat racing, is Christian Fittipaldi. He is now 8.9 seconds behind Eric Bernard in 3rd place. So that is that's the pace that the Ligier team will instruct their drivers to run at.
The last time a Ferrari won here in Hockenheim was 1983, Renianu. The last time Ferrari won a German Grand Prix was 1985 at the Nürburgring. Well, John, Gerhard Berger on lap 39. You said the Ligier drivers could back off and finish on the podium. This man's got to just bring it back home now.
Yes, his job is to ensure he makes no errors. For a driver in this situation with such a large lead and no pressure whatsoever upon him, it's just concentrating on your rhythm, maintaining your rhythm. And in fact, one of the most difficult things a driver has to contend with is when a team is saying, slow down, take it easy. A driver is slowing down and taking it easy, but because he is very relaxed in the situation, in fact, he's lapping probably very close to what he might do if he was actually trying. That's the difference it makes. And I'm quite certain that Jean Todt in the Ferrari pits is saying, Gerhard, I told you to slow down. And Berger's replying, I have. But the lap time doesn't reflect it. Gerhard Berger is in a lovely rhythm, and that is why he can maintain a very comfortable pace, just about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, depending on the lap, slower than Damon Hill currently is lapping at. And if he tried to lap any slower, I would expect him to start to make errors in driving.
Gerhard Berger starting lap 40, and he's behind Oliver Beretta, and Beretta's Ford engine did not sound all that good. Since the retirement of Michael Schumacher some 17 laps ago, John, we haven't had any retirement whatsoever. So after lap 21, no one retired from this German Grand Prix.
I think there's a simple reason, Allard, for that.
We've lost too many.
Well, we've lost a lot of people. Those that are remaining, and particularly in the case of Ligier, Footwork and the LaRousse team, all they want to do is get those points. This is a gift for those teams. Oh, and unfortunately one of the two Simtex, David Brabham has pulled off. So one down and one to go. But really, what everybody is trying to do now is the least they need to do to get to the end. And the Jean Alesi, happiness, joy in one hand, sadness on the other, because he's still been denied his maiden Grand Prix victory. He will love to do it in a Ferrari, He will be joyous that a Ferrari will win here today, but sad that it is not him in that car.
Beretta there, the last unlapped runner, and race leader Gerhard Berger coming into the stadium, and I don't know where they get them from, but there's more and more Ferrari flags.
Well, the Ferrari Owners Club in Germany is very strong indeed, and in spite of being a very Teutonic country with fine sports cars like Mercedes, BMW and Porsche, what Ferrari makes in their road cars is quite unique. No other manufacturer really has managed to captivate the market in the way Ferrari has done. And there are many Ferraris in the car parks around Hockenheim throughout this weekend.
And remember, John, Gerhard Berger weekend did not start very well. On Friday morning he blew an engine and he went from there.
Looked very much like a normal weekend for Gerhard Berger. In fact, we thought, oh well, what's different? Every time we see Berger in a Ferrari, there's some little drama or other. Well, there's still laps remaining in this year's German Grand Prix, the 9th round of the 1994 FIA Formula One World Championship. A very controversial and very sad season to date. And of course, ramifications of the events in the Place de la Concorde last Tuesday in Paris at the FIA headquarters, when Michael Schumacher received a 2-race ban. Rubens Barrichello and Mika Hakkinen were put on suspended sentences. Damon Hill absolved of stopping because Damon Hill did not stop. He still managed to pick up a Union Jack on the way around, and the Williams team had the evidence there to substantiate that, and Damon walked out with a broad smile on his face, delighted. And he did make the point in saying, at your home Grand Prix, I really am very proud indeed to have a Union Jack in my hand as I make my way back to the Parc Fermé. But I think the point that maybe Damon had missed was that once the flag has been taken, any part of the racetrack back to Parc Fermé is considered Parc Fermé. So therefore, he got away with it because he didn't stop. But had he stopped, he might have had a more severe penalty, or a penalty, not a more severe penalty.
Gerhard Berger lapping in the 1:49, and there's someone else stopped out on the circuit, and that's the other Simtech.
Yes. Well, sadness for the Simtech. Within the space of one lap, their 2 cars have retired, one on the return to the stadium, and Jean-Marc Gounod retiring, pulling off the track on the first straight after exit of the stadium.
We're on lap 42 of 45. 49.5 seconds the gap between race leader Gerhard Berger and Oliver Panis. Eric Bernard is still in 3rd.
Well, Ligier benefiting from Frank Durney's association and reassociation with the team, and let's watch how the car swoops left. There you can see wheel up in the air. That's a sight we've seen throughout the weekend with this new regulation requiring a 10 millimeter thick plank of wood, the entire length of the underbody, some 30 centimeters wide. Cars running very stiff springs indeed. Well, I wonder what's passing through the eyes of that man, Niki Lauda. He's been with Ferrari for 2 years now, and his involvement in the team is to try and act as an interface between the drivers and the engineers. And I'm sure he's feeling emotion as his fellow Austrian, Gerhard Berger, en route to a famous victory for this very famous team. And I believe, in fact, this victory, if it does take place, will put Ferrari and McLaren back on equal footing as the winningest teams in Grand Prix racing history.
I suggested that to someone yesterday and they said, no way. I said, if Ferrari does win tomorrow, no way. But who thought we were going to lose around 12 cars on the first lap? I mean, and have a Ligier in 3rd after the first lap as well. So it's been quite an extraordinary Grand Prix here in Hockenheim, with race leader Gerhard Berger on lap 43. So when he crosses the line, he's got 2 laps to go. and he's got a massive lead over Oliver Panis, Eric Bernard, Christian Fittipaldi, Gianni Morbidelli and Eric Comas. That is the top 6 here in Hockenheim. And Berger's lap times going up, and everybody sort of lapping very much slower than they did before, because everybody, I think, John, is happy in a 31-degree heat to get to the finish. And so are the engines, by the way.
I think the engines really more so than the drivers. It isn't, in fact, although with the very stiff suspension it is uncomfortable, but it's not a physically demanding circuit like many others in the calendar. Lots of straights in which you can catch your breath, relax, have a little look around you, check your mirrors, and then grit yourself for heavy braking, and particularly into this Ost curve. Very bumpy indeed on the entrance, and again, as you go left, you can see just how bumpy it is, wheels in the air. But when you're in the rhythm and the swing as Gerhard Berger is, and team boss Jean Todt, landmark for him as well. It'll be his first victory as team manager of the Ferrari team. All those things, you'll probably feel very anesthetized right now.
Well, it's going to happen, hopefully, for the team when Gerhard crosses the line in 2 laps time. It will be Grand Prix victory 104. It's Grand Prix victory number 9 for Gerhard Berger, and they've waited long enough for it, John.
Ferrari has had a drought in terms of Grand Prix wins. That looks about to end, and with the second half of this 94 season showing promise, because the improvement in performance that we've seen from the Ferrari team over the last 3 Grand Prix, and now with this new 75-degree V12 Ferrari engine giving more power and, up to this point, reliability. Well, I can't say Hungaroring is going to be a circuit that favors Ferrari particularly. It ought to really, in fact, favor Benetton. But Ferrari, Williams with the Renault, and that massive improvement that Williams have made in their aerodynamics and chassis, Benetton are going to find the second half of the year much more challenging than they did in the first part.
And John, I'm also happy to say that with Ferrari being in a position to challenge, Williams in a position to challenge, we suddenly have 6 cars basically fighting, or maybe 5 initially with Verstappen, who's not up to Schumacher's pace yet, but 5 cars fighting for a possible first place.
Indeed, it's just a shame that the championship situation is so favorable towards Michael Schumacher, but to take nothing away from Benetton and Ford.
Well, you can't see that on your screen, but right in front of our commentary box, the whole Ferrari pits is running to the pit wall. So is the Ligier team. The Ferrari and Ligier teams just happen to be next to each other. For Ferrari, a victory. For Ligier, probably as good as a victory, John.
And I think, in fact, most people in the pit lane would be very sympathetic to Ferrari and to Ligier. Both have had, as I say, difficult periods. And, well, I think that come the next Grand Prix, one thing I would like to say now is, of course, all the controversy regarding the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. I'm quite sure, whatever it was, they'll cut those trees down, they'll make the improvements and changes to the circuit to improve driver safety, because I would say, whatever the political reasons are, the Italian fans will demand an Italian Grand Prix at their beloved Monza.
Gerhard Berger coming out of the Senna curve for the last time, changing up to 6th gear for the very last time. The mechanics are waiting for him, all of them. The mechanics, the motorhome personnel, everybody involved with the Ferrari team. Gerhard, the flags, suddenly there's Austrian flags, there's fireworks. Suddenly Gerhard, maybe John, is German a little bit, according to the Germans.
I think the fans, having lost Michael Schumacher at mid-race, are absolutely delighted to call it a Teutonic victory. It is an Austrian victory. It's a victory for Ferrari, for Gerhard Berger. It's a memorable victory. I'm delighted for Gerhard Berger. Everybody at Eurosport is. And look, you can see, well, you can see, now you see it. There are the cheers from the Ferrari team. Gerhard Berger has ended his personal Grand Prix drought. Look at the joy, the pandemonium. Jean Alesi, Mr. Lombardi, the engine man at Ferrari, he is responsible for this new power unit. And there, the Ferrari pit's going absolutely
berserk.
Mad.
Second place man, Oliver Panis, now coming into the stadium, and, well, maybe he's been lucky, but he's thread his way through the carnage on the first lap, picked up third place on the first lap of the race and finished second. Oliver Panis, very well done.
Allard, the one thing I learned about my Grand Prix experience is the record books don't tell you how you finish second or third. The fact is, that is in the record book. Olivier Panis is second. Eric Bernard, we're waiting for him to come across the line, take the checkered flag, is third, and that is all that counts.
So, two Ligiers in the top three. A Ferrari first, and now we're waiting for the footwork of Christian Fittipaldi, Gianni Morbidelli and Enric Mas to complete the top six finishers.
And there Christian Fittipaldi coming across the line, and I think I'm very delighted indeed. Christian Fittipaldi, as will the Footwork Ford team, Jackie Oliver, Alan Jenkins and all those members of the Footwork team back at their Milton Keynes base. Delighted to have two cars in the points this season. 5 points in total for Footwork. And there Gerhard Berger, a man who I'm sure will find it difficult. I'm sure he will be emotional about this victory. Remember, after the tragedy at Imola, Gerhard Berger went through a range of emotions, and the honesty in which he expressed them at the Monaco Grand Prix 2 weeks later, I think was one of the most moving moments I remember at Grand Prix. Well, the fact the Ferrari flags are all around the circuit, mixed in, of course, with the Benetton Ford Elf flags, but Martin Brundle walking back down the screen as the final classification comes up on your screens.
So here we see the top six: Gerhard Berger, Oliver Panis and Eric Bernard. They're the remainder of the finishers: Oliver Beretta and Damon Hill. Damon eventually finishing 2.2 seconds behind Beretta. So there are the Ferrari flags. I mean, honestly, John, do not believe where they came from. I mean, suddenly I looked up, someone must have sold quite a lot of Ferrari flags during the race, I think.
Well, I think a lot of people that maybe they weren't quite sure which way to go, whether they wanted to support Ferrari or whether they wanted to support Michael Schumacher. But one thing was clear, that when Gerhard Berger put his Ferrari on pole position on Saturday afternoon, there was going to be a very strong Ferrari following here this afternoon for the German Grand Prix. Gerhard Berger finally coming to the fulfillment of his return to Ferrari victory, as Martin Brundle rather lonely on his return to the pits. It's a long walk. Martin hoping to pick up a lift from one of the course cars after the cars return on to Parc Fermé. And you see Marlboro Finland flags there for Mika Häkkinen. Well, they didn't last very long.
So the stadium, still fireworks going off when Gerhard Berger gets back. Gerhard now in third position in the championship on 27 points behind Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher. And what's happened there? Did he run out of fuel or did he just stop? Well, Gerhard getting out of his car. I don't know what I think he actually ran out of fuel, John.
I think it's possible that he may be rather low on fuel, to put it this way, but certainly Gerhard had enough fuel to take the checkered flag. And look at that, the smile will be ear to ear, and I think everybody around Hockenheim Ring, all the marshals, the flag marshals, will be delighted. I know there are a few Austrians who work behind the scenes in Formula One. The Austrian, I think you might call them the Schnapps Club.
You mean Karl-Heinz?
Karl-Heinz Zimmermann from Lech in Austria, and I would think that Gerhard will have I would say a Schnapps or a dozen this evening before he will return home. Well, John, the joy you can see beginning to build up, the realization of his famous victory for Ferrari is gradually sinking in.
The crowd, 148,000 in this stadium. A massive amount of people here today for the German Grand Prix. And a winner, maybe a surprise winner, Gerhard Berger. But Berger was on pole position, let's not forget. But these two drivers, that was a surprise.
I think that Berger could have been a fair bet if anybody wanted to go to the bookies, because he had pole position. He was very confident indeed of the performance. In fact, 3 weeks ago, we saw at Silverstone just how potent the new Ferrari, or revised Ferrari rather than new Ferrari, is. There is his car, and that Marshall will live and enjoy the tail. And he had to sit in Gerhard Berger's German Grand Prix winning Ferrari. He was in the car when it was towed back to Parc Fermé, and I'm sure he'll be dining out in that one for many a week to come.
John, if we go back to the Michael Schumacher situation, well, we see 1 hour 22 minutes. That was a very calculated guess, Watty, when you did that this morning. For Gerhard Berger. The team is under pressure now. Ferrari's caught up, Jean Todt's caught up, Gerhard's caught up, but Williams is caught up as well. Benetton has to push. They can't just make mistakes anymore.
They've got a comfortable lead in the championship. It'll all come down to the appeal that Michael Schumacher has lodged. Whether the sentence is reduced. Some people have speculated that in fact one could see the 2-race ban reduced to 1-race ban. On the other hand, we saw in the case of Eddie Irvine, when he went to appeal his 1-race ban, he got a 3-race ban. So we can't tell what's going to happen. And in that press conference, President of the FIA, Max Mosley, stated that the earliest an appeal hearing could be heard would be the week following the German Grand Prix. So we don't know yet what the procedure will be. But whatever it is, the second part of the season is hotting up. Ferrari have won a Grand Prix. Williams are going to win more Grand Prix. And as we come to some of the faster circuits, Spa, and we believe Monza, because that will, I'm sure, be an Italian Grand Prix, Ferrari and the Williams Renault team are going to be very, very strong indeed.
Listen to the crowds cheering for the top 3 of this German Grand Prix. And I'm sure we will have the Austrian national anthem played for the first time since Adelaide 1992.
And now for the winning constructor.
Gerhard Berger, the trophy presented by Wolfgang Ernst zu Isenburg und Büdingen, and he's the president of the AVD, the Automobile Club from Germany. I've been practicing that, by the way.
I think he did very well. I saw the podium ceremony list and I thought, well, that's something Allard could do. I'll let him have the honor of pronouncing some of the names, but basically the man who I think is the most relieved in the podium is not Gerhard Berger, but in fact Bürgermeister of Hockenheim, Gustav Schranke. Is that right?
Schrank, yeah.
Schrank. Because up until Thursday, it was not sure whether Michael Schumacher was going to be driving here in his home Grand Prix, but the appeal was lodged. The Grand Prix took place with Michael Schumacher. But a very popular Grand Prix victory indeed for Ferrari and for Gerhard Berger. And personally, I'm delighted to see Ferrari on the winners' podium, and I think Berger deserved that victory regardless of what took place on the opening lap. He has worked very hard along with Ferrari team, and Gerhard, mischievous at heart, very special personality and character, fun-loving, a little bit mad like many Austrians, but a great asset to Formula One. At one point, you know, I felt that Gerhard, after Imola, the loss of Ayrton Senna, may well decide to retire. In my heart, I think I wanted him to retire, but seeing him up there, his judgment to continue was absolutely right.
So Gerhard Berger, Oliver Panis and Eric Bernard. We will talk to them after the break here on Eurosport. Stay with us.
He's very happy, but I think he did a great job also. I mean, since he's there, he tried really very hard to improve the situation, to build up a good structure. And that's the result of it, and I'm very happy for him too, because he's working hard, and I'm sure Montezemolo is crying at home because he needs so much to the success, and it was coming more near, but it was still very, very hard.
Well, in anybody's book, this was a pretty extraordinary race, and you got pushed very hard in the early stages by Michael. How did you read the race from where you were sitting?
I didn't know if he planned 2 stops or 1 stop, so my intention was to keep him behind me, because if he do 2 stops, he's going to be in troubles anyway. If he do 1 stop and he stays behind me until the pit stop, it's already a good chance. But he has still the quicker car. I mean, the car is very, very quick in the braking area. I was in troubles, but I could keep him behind. I was just once in a dangerous position. Once he was alongside me, but I could block it. And so I was just able to keep him in front, in the back, but I was on the limit.
And the car rolled to a stop on the slowing down lap here. What was the problem there?
Yeah, it just cuts off in the very end. I just stopped it and they just put it back.
Well, c'était une bonne course pour vous, Olivier.
Oui, c'est vrai que ça a été une très très bonne course. Je crois qu'on a eu de la chance au départ, il y a eu un accrochage, mais je crois que ça fait partie de la course. Je suis très content de
Oliver Panis saying he's very happy. He said I was able to avoid all the carnage on the first lap.
Et je suis vraiment heureux pour eux qu'on ait marqué tous ces points avec Eric aujourd'hui.
He says very good team results for me and for Eric.
L'écurie marche beaucoup mieux et je crois que ça commence à aller de mieux en mieux et je pense qu'à chaque Grand Prix, j'espère qu'on sera.
He says it went much better this weekend than the previous weekends, and we're looking forward till the end of the season.
A sensational result for you too, but you perhaps got a better view of the start than most of us. What happened?
It's difficult to say because I'm very far to the accident, and every time it's difficult to talk to some circumstances to the accident because you never know exactly the situation. But I'm very happy. Not for the accident, but I'm happy because it's a lucky race for us, and it's a fantastic result. And probably if there was no accident, we are probably on a point, but not on the best place.
Well, Gerhard, it's been your day today. A final thought?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope we can progress the situation just like we did in the last races, because we need to come to circuits where it's not so perfect for us than Hockenheim. Hockenheim fits quite well for us. Budapest next race is going to be much more difficult. But I'm so happy that the team works so hard in the right direction. And I think if we keep going like this, we have a good chance soon also be strong in other circuits. And I tell you, it makes just again really fun to drive in this circumstance, that you know you can go on board, that you know you have a chance to win. And I'm just a bit laughing because in the last race, Hill and Schumacher was joking. Schumacher said, okay, I'll let you win here in Silverstone, you let me win in Hockenheim. And I said, don't forget me, because I'm going to win in Hockenheim. So really, it's just perfect.
Well, congratulations to all three of you. Great race. Thank you very much.
That was the top three here in Hockenheim. We'll be back after the break with highlights of this race and that incredible start.